so I'm checking it in for the end of week 2 today. So like last week, I'm just gonna go through each of the check-in questions one by one. So I did my morning pages every single day this past week, but there was again like a couple of days this week where I just didn't have time in the morning to do them first thing when I woke up. And so I did notice that when I was doing those pages later in the day, either in between my morning plans and my afternoon plans, or late at night right before I went to sleep, that's when it tended to feel a little bit more like I just want to get this done. I'm not really looking forward to it. And I would find myself trying to distract myself as I was writing. And I don't know if it's because just throughout the day as I was experiencing things or, thinking thoughts, like those things would show up in my writing. And because I had more of an opportunity to like accumulate those things throughout the day, there were like more tangent thoughts that I had to be distracted by. Whereas I think first thing in the morning, the only thing that's like on my mind is usually like what weird dream did I have the night before, and what to-dos do I need to do to get ready for the day, or how do I feel about the plans that I have later in the day. So there's just like less things in my head maybe, but I think it was mostly just writing about like I've been having really, really stressful and vivid nightmares all of this past week. So I found myself recapping my nightmares a little bit, and then philosophizing about like, oh, I wonder why like I had this particular nightmare. I wonder if it ties to anything that I'm feeling about, that I'm feeling like anxious or stressed about in my normal life. I think actually a lot of my morning pages end up being just me kind of like self-therapizing. So it's kind of interesting because now I can just look at my thought process, thinking through my different feelings. And then besides that, I think since I am traveling, there's a lot of just me talking through, what I'm excited about during the day, or if it's at the end of the day, how I felt about the day's experience. This question says like, don't worry if your pages are whiny and trite. And I'm thinking about like what the tone of my writing is. Honestly, I feel like it's a little bit all over the place, kind of in the same way that I'm talking right now, where it's very just as things pop into my mind, it's kind of the same thing. And I'm realizing I don't think I have super self-critical thoughts, but I also don't have super positive thoughts. They're just kind of like, oh, I'm excited for this. Oh, I gotta go do this. It's like all just like very like that, which I guess it's maybe good that I don't have very whiny thoughts. But yeah, I guess like maybe that also means that I don't get as much out of the morning pages in terms of like any insight into my typical thought patterns, other than that they like jump around. I did do my artist day this week. I didn't do anything fancy. I just went to Little India, which is kind of like an ethnic enclave in Singapore. It's kind of close to Kampong Glam, but I went to the area because I really wanted to check out the outside of the Indian Heritage Center, and I also wanted to just walk around on the streets in that area and see if there were any interesting architecture to draw. So I did end up doing that. I went to the Indian Heritage Center first, and I ended up drawing a picture of one of the intersections there that I thought had a nice kind of juxtaposition between like the modernness of the building that was the Heritage Center and the kind of like more older style of the shop houses that were directly across. And I'm really happy with how that drawing turned out, because I really tried to force myself to take my time with those drawings. I think usually if I'm out on the streets and I'm just doing an urban sketch, either my partner is with me and he's not sketching, so he's just kind of like on his phone waiting for me, or maybe I just know that I have other things that I plan to do, but like because the artist date was this kind of like sacred time that I just allotted like an extensive amount of time for, I felt like I had the luxury of being able to sit there and take as long as I needed to take. So I took my time without the details, took my time with actually trying to come up with a composition, whereas normally I would just like park myself somewhere and then just start sketching without really thinking it through too much. And I ended up being really happy with how the picture turned out. So I think that ties in really well with another of the themes that I've been thinking about this week. So I'll talk more about that in number 3. But yeah, after that, I went to, I think it's called Tekken Place. I'm not actually sure, but it's a little market that's close-ish to the Heritage Center. They had some nice Lunar New Year decorations up that was really floral, and it had the Chinese word for, it's called Xi. I think it's for like good fortune or something like that. So I sketched that, and then after that I was just walking around and I walked past an ice cream place that looked really cute, and again, I think seeking respite from the sun, I went inside and I got an ice cream, and it was really yummy. It was kaya flavored, and then they actually had a really beautiful floral arrangement that I liked, so I was like, hey, while I'm here, like I have a couple more, like I had like an hour still that I could kill, so I am honestly so happy with how each of the pictures turned out, because I think I just let myself like luxuriate in the experience and take as long as I needed to sketch, and yeah. So I think one of the themes that I've been thinking about a lot recently, it's from a book that I read recently called 4,000 Weeks, and the byline is something like time management for mere mortals, or something like that. And the idea of the book is basically that traditional time management creates this illusion that as long as you plan your life in the exact right manner, you'll be able to fit everything that you've ever wanted to do with your life within the incredibly limited amount of time that we have as people on this earth. But the reality is that that's not the case, and no matter how diligently you try to plan out your day, more demands will come that seem high priority to you, and because you're under this impression that you're going to be able to control your time, you're not forced to ask yourself what it is that is actually meaningful to you. I've been really thinking about that idea, as well as another one that the book brings up, which is that there are certain things that just take the amount of time that they take. And I think exploring or drawing or, like building a relationship, like these are all examples that the book kind of brings up as things that just, no matter how much you try and, have to-dos around them or try to structure them any type of way, they'll just end up taking, however much time they take. I think my primary takeaway from that particular concept is just that I need to be a little bit more patient with how long it kind of takes to develop expertise and develop comfort in drawing. I think a lot of the times I look at my art and I'm like, this is crap, like, why have I been drawing for so long and I still don't have perspective down? And it's just, like I can't rush myself. Like one day, if I keep practicing, I'll just hopefully get good at perspective, and maybe I won't, because it's just something that, I don't know, like maybe it's not in the cards for me, but it just, I can't rush it. So, I think that's been a good process of acceptance for me, and it's something I think I'm still working on as I get like kind of continuously frustrated and then reminding myself of the process over and over. I had another thing that I thought about as I was reading this question, and now that I'm like talking, I can't remember it anymore. One of the things that chapter 2 talks about is, it talks about 2 main things that I can remember. The first one is about whether there are any crazy makers in your lives. And the way that the book talks about a crazy maker is just someone who's like really dramatic or maybe has a lot of issues that you, as someone who's a blocked artist, might be attracted to helping them with their lives as a mechanism to distract yourself from the fact that you're blocked in your own life. And I think, as I was reading it, I was really trying to go through my roster of people that are close to me. And I'm like, I actually don't think I have someone that matches that description. And I feel pretty fortunate about that, that it gives me the opportunity to really be then present with myself and my own experience, and, doesn't give me that opportunity to be distracting myself. And the other thing that the book kind of talks about is how when you're first in this process of coming unstuck, there may be opportunities that come up for you that will kind of open up this pathway towards incorporating more art into your life. And because you're so used to being stuck, your you're maybe tempted to reject those opportunities because you're kind of still in this self-doubting, critical mindset, and you're just like, oh, like, imposter syndrome, that's not like meant for me, I can't possibly do that, or maybe like this is not the right time, but you'll just come up with reasons to neglect it. And I actually feel like for me this past week, I actually reached out to Run for Chinatown, which is this organization in New York that I joined back end of last year, and they host weekly runs to bring the community together around running and also support local Chinatown businesses. I'm a huge fan of their mission and their purpose, but unfortunately because of Omicron, they've had to shut down their in-person runs, but they've actually transitioned recently to an online virtual run that you can do from anywhere, and they've been having different people in the organization contribute to the Instagram art for publicizing these virtual runs. I actually reached out to them and I said, hey, if you guys need more help with drawing these weekly virtual run Instagram things, like I'm happy to contribute. And I think first I'm like pretty proud of myself for even reaching out to them, because I think that's something that I would have talked myself out of before. I think my mindset would have been like, oh, my art's not good enough. What makes me think that I'm qualified to kind of put my art out there so publicly, or even just like, oh, like why would they want me to draw for them? But I think I just like had this like urge of like, hey, this is a place where you can bridge what you've been wanting to do, which is like a more community focused, like kind of like good cause to apply your art towards, and it just felt really perfect. So I think before my critical voices could kick in, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna go for it. So I did that, and I worked with the organizers to come up with a kind of Instagram post design that we all liked, and that was actually posted yesterday. And they actually also invited me to participate in their weekly Instagram live. I was like instant anxiety, like imposter syndrome, like, oh, I'm not a good speaker, oh, I'm so nervous, like, why am I qualified? Especially, I think the previous week, they interviewed, a high schooler who started a community fridge in Chinatown, which I was just like, whoa, that's like so cool and, so involved. And then the next week after that, they interviewed like a track star who, was like teed up to becoming an Olympian or something like that. And I was like, I can't possibly follow people like this. But, I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, I feel like a different person might have said, like, oh my gosh, that's such an honor, I'd love to. But my immediate response was like, oh my God, like, why me? But then I thought about like what Julia Cameron had said about like, oh, like, that's exactly the reaction kind of like she would expect you to have in this block mode still. And I was like, okay, this is that like serendipitous moment for me, and I shouldn't just like let it pass because I'm feeling afraid. So I kind of pushed myself to respond with a little bit more enthusiasm, and that just happened this morning, and I'm pretty happy with how it went. They interviewed myself and another runner in the org, and it was a really great opportunity for me to get a chance to talk to the organizers and also share a little bit about some of these thoughts around, the intersection of art and advocacy that I've been thinking through recently. I definitely felt like my awkwardness was there, and I use a lot of filler words, but public speaking is scary, and I'm working on it. So I'm trying to be nice to myself. But yeah, I think those were kind of the two big breakthroughs / thoughts that I had this week. So that's it for my check-in for this week. I'm going to be leaving Singapore today, and we're flying back to San Francisco, where we'll be kind of doing a quick suitcase change, and we'll be headed off to Tahoe. So I'm really looking forward to first getting out of this heat, but also having a bit more of a forcing function to be staying at home and having more dedicated time to actually, maybe work on some bigger pieces or getting back into some of my reading goals. Oh, and the other thing is, because I'm in San Francisco this week, I'll actually be checking in with some of my art friends that I'm doing this Artist Way challenge with in person. So I'm super, super excited about that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the week ahead, and I will chat with you guys next week.